Welcome to the Women in Wellness podcast. This is your place to get the latest up-to-date health and wellness information specifically for women, while providing you practical tools you can implement today. I'm Dr. Caitlin Sazowski, and I wanted to personally thank you for spending part of your day with me. Hello, Women and Wellness. It is Dr. Caitlin, and I am very excited to have my guest with me today. His name is James Berry. And before I tell you a little bit about him, which, by the way, is very impressive, we're going to be talking about a lot of things that I constantly talk to you guys about when it relates to food. And it's going to also bring in the importance of organ meat. But it's going to be in a very different format than I've ever talked about before. So you've got to stay tuned to this episode. So James is a 16-year in the culinary field and started as a private chef. He has actually worked with a ton of celebrities, everybody from Tom Cruise, George Clooney, Gerard Butler, Barbara Streisand. Like, these are some pretty big name individuals. And he also is the founder of a product called Pluck. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm super excited. But James, can you, because I'm the why, like I'm always the why behind everything, like why we shouldn't be doing something, why we should be doing something. But I'm going to have you today be the how, like how can we make these changes in the kitchen? So welcome and thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Caitlin. Being 16 years plus in this industry, I started out with an interest in healthy cooking specifically. So I didn't become a chef to work in a restaurant. I was all about how can I take comfort foods, because that's what everyone defaults to. How can I get comfort foods and make them actually healthy? Mm-hmm. And so in the 16 plus years, I have gotten very good at substitutions and understanding how to support people not feeling deprived, because food and psychology, as you know, is key. You cannot separate the two. And we are very emotional eaters. We're human, and you can never forget that. Like, I think this is a perfect time of year to be talking about this, because a lot of people are setting their, yearly goals and, this year I'm going to do it differently. But it's like 80% of people that basically all their New Year's resolutions fail by mid-February.
Oh, I was going to say, most of the time I hear it's like the beginning of February that they've already forgotten and moved on.
And yeah, exactly. So it's so quick, right? If you think about it. And so I think we always have to remember we're very human. So whenever I work with clients and I'm supporting the diets that, people like you, the nutritionists out there, are telling them, like, this is why you have to eat this way. We've done these tests, or this, or that, or this is what's going on with your health. And this is why you need to change your eating habits. And then they sit there and go, but how? And so then that's where I come in and I support them in showing them substitutions they can make where it won't feel like they're not getting the foods that comfort them. And one of the ways I immediately talk to people, and this, I think, will help the audience if you're someone who's on a dietary change, a temporary diet change, or even a new life change, is we want to think about what is the texture of the food. And that's something that people don't think about a lot, is texture. That is usually where we connect our emotions.
I think about texture all the time. I am such a texture person.
Right? And so what are you? Are you creamy, crispy, salty, sweet? Like, what is your texture and flavor profile?
I cannot stand rubbery. So anything like flan or Jell-O, I can't do. Like, It makes me gag. I'm not crazy about creamy. I like crunchy. So like, I love a fresh salad with tons of nuts and like crunchy, crisp vegetables. But I do like a light creamy dressing on top. So I don't know. I think
crunchy.
Biggest thing is I like crunchy. I like salty. I just don't like the flan, the Jell-O, that type of texture, that like spongy texture.
Yeah, so if I was working with you as a client, that would be one of the first questions I ask you. And because really when you're cooking for someone or with someone, I'm not going to show you what I do because I cook for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would be trying to cook for you. And I would try to basically get inside your head, get inside your spirit a little bit, your essence about, and so I would start there as what is your textures? What are the flavors you go towards? And then I would start to recommend. So for in your case, I would probably recommend vegetables that are not necessarily too creamy when you cook them. Like, so I wouldn't recommend boiling for you. I wouldn't recommend even too much steaming unless you do it a very light steaming, right? I would actually probably recommend a lot more roasting for you because basically with the roasting, you're going to get the crispy outside, but then still a soft inside, but not like an eggy inside, right? It's gonna be like that, the kind of creamy that you're talking about, but it's like a firm creamy. So roasting would be really key. But I would
You
look at that.
literally just described how I do my cooking. A light saute, a very light steam if I do that twice a year,
Yeah.
or
So it still has
roasting.
the crunch, right? You still get the crunch.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
So I would look at that. And then I would also explore, what did you eat as a kid? I think it's really key, as a parent. I have two daughters. Um, and I'm always thinking about the foundations because, of course, at one point we don't have control over what our kids are going to eat. At one point, we just don't. Particularly once they start going to school, they eat whatever their instincts tell them, or their cravings tell them. So all we have as parents is that foundational and what we can control, and we can control the home, right?
mm-hmm.
So whenever they're at home, this is what you eat, this is how you eat. And so I would ask you, how did you eat as a kid? And I would start to get familiar with your because those are inevitably your comfort foods, right? And of
Mm-hmm.
course I would also ask, when you are at your lowest, what is it you gravitate towards?
Chocolate.
You have chocolate?
A dark chocolate, a really dark chocolate. That's like if I'm craving something, it's a dark chocolate normally.
What percentage?
Oh, usually 80 plus. Like
Okay. Oh,
I'm a
good.
dark kind of
Yeah,
gal, especially
that's
with a little
terrific.
sea salt. Mm.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
Yep.
Yeah, so I would kind of get familiar with that. So, and dark chocolate also has a bitterness to it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So a natural bitterness. So that would also be something I'd be aware of. Is okay, you probably gravitate, and your palate is used to a little bit more of a bitterness. So I would be aware of that when I'm cooking. And I think all these kind of questions add up to an essence of what you will feel good about. So even when I start then incorporating these new dietary changes, as long as I'm tapping these elements, the texture, that flavor profile,
Mm-hmm.
you are going to feel met. You're going to feel emotionally met, and that's really key, because I think so many of us are trying to bite off more than we can chew, and particularly at this time of year, we're setting these goals that are really unachievable. And so I'm always looking for, how do we make this achievable for you? Because most, as you know, most health protocols are 3 to 6 months or longer, right?
Yeah. Or
So
lifelong, I tell
we're
people.
lifelong, right?
Sometimes, depending, they got to be lifelong changes if you want to maintain a certain level of health.
Yeah. And life is short. I mean, 80, if we're lucky, 80 years or something around there,
Mm-hmm.
that's short. And I don't want anyone eat and think about this. Eating is something we do a lot, right? In
Mm-hmm.
those 80 years, if we were lucky, right? So I don't want you to be unhappy when you're eating, because where's the joy? We need to have joy in our lives. Um, and so I'm always thinking like that. Like, how can I achieve your dietary goals, your health goals, but ensure that you're still smiling? And it's very doable, very, very doable.
I don't know if this is even possible, but I think what you got to do is create a quiz for people to take where you can have them answer these questions, and then it'll almost give them like recipe ideas, or hey, you might want to focus on A, B, C, D, or this type of cooking, or that kind of thing. Not to put more work on your plate or
I know,
anything,
right?
James, but
We have so my wife is a Margaret Floyd Berry. She's a functional nutritionist as well. So we work a lot together, and that is an idea we've had, is that because so many people are having to go on health protocols and change their diet, and so coming up basically with like a substitutions book,
Yeah.
Like, so like, oh, okay, I can't eat this. And then boom, this is what you can eat, and kind of
Hmm.
giving alternatives that still meet the need of the thing that you had to remove.
Yep. I,
Um,
I
it's
love
definitely
it.
been an idea, but time is time is short.
I know. And honestly, I'm not a personal chef. I think I'm a pretty decent cook in the kitchen. Um, but with that being said, I can only give my expertise, which is far minimal compared to yours. So, what would
Well,
be, oh, go ahead.
oh, I was going to say, I think that's a really astute awareness. I mean, I think that's the, in my time in the health field, that I started to try to do everything. I started studying nutrition, and I was going to do cooking and nutrition, and I was even trying to do like sports, or like
Mm,
exercise, and I was just trying to be everything. I even took like massage. I went to masseuse school, um, and when I met my wife, she was so good at nutrition, and she understood it on a level that I never could.
mhm.
And it really honed down. It really spoke to me, and like, you know what, I would far better be excellent at what I do than be mediocre at a bunch of things. And so that's, we actually made that choice ourselves, where she's the nutritionist and I am the chef.
Yeah. Well, and that's important to understand too, like, especially when someone's going to somebody, what is their excellence in? If someone's coming to me and needs me to teach them how to cut vegetables, not happening, because if you look at how my vegetables are cut, they're definitely not diced in the same size, and forget it. But if you're coming to me to understand, okay, what foods do you need because of what you have going on, that's very different. So, what would be, and I'm just going to, we didn't even talk about this, and I didn't even let you know I was going to do this, but if somebody had to be gluten free, so no like wheat, rye, barley, the big ones,
Yeah.
what could they do instead of? So, like making a roux or thickening a sauce, or um, without getting into the breads and the baked goods and that kind of stuff, because we could be on that topic for way too long.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so there's two. This is actually great because it's gotten so much more complicated than this now. Because now it's like, I'm gluten free, but I'm also paleo, or I'm gluten free and I don't do this or
And
that
I'm
or such.
keto.
So, yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So it just gets so much more complicated when you add things. I recently worked on the cookbook for Dr. Alejandro Younger, he's known for his clean program, his clean detox program.
Mm-hmm.
And I did the recipes for his book Clean 7. It just came out late last year. And his thing was, so the clean program has its own dietary specifics, and then we were including Ayurvedic principles. So I had to do recipes for both, and it was truly insane, like truly insane. And because what works for one Ayurvedic, if there's
Yep.
three, it's like what worked for one didn't work for the other two, and what worked for, it was just insane. But so yes, when you add things, so your question is beautiful because you're just asking for one thing, so I can easily answer that. So basically, the two obvious options are potato, so white potato, not
Mm-hmm.
not like potato starch, but just literally white potato.
Mm-hmm.
You can blend that into a soup to make it naturally creamy. And then the other is oats. Obviously you have to ensure that they're gluten-free oats.
Mm-hmm.
All oats technically, as you probably talk to your clients about, are gluten-free,
Mm-hmm.
but due to contamination and cross contamination, we're seeing a lot of oats show up as having gluten in them. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why you have to buy ones that are certified gluten-free. But those two, with the oats, you don't need much of either. I mean, I'm talking, depending on how big, let's say your soup is, you sometimes only need like a tablespoon of each.
Mm-hmm.
Not at the same time, one or the other. One tablespoon, or about a little chunk of potato, or about a tablespoon, or maybe a fourth of a cup of oats, and you just blend it in, and it really does make it creamy.
Yep. I use, when I'm doing starchies, if I'm going higher carb on those days, I will absolutely use potato in soups as a thickener. That was actually something my dad taught me, my babcha taught him, especially when doing more of like a curry soup, or something that you need a little more thickness to. So great tip.
Now, what I do for curry, so what I personally do is I will, and I love doing this. So I love thickening with vegetables instead of, starches or
Mm-hmm.
grains. So I will use cauliflower in my
Mhm.
curry. So basically I'll cook the curry just as I would, but I'll put bits of cauliflower in there while it's cooking, and then I blend it all at the end, and the cauliflower naturally thickens it.
I haven't tried that. I'm gonna have to next time.
Yeah, and it doesn't affect the flavor as long as it's, already, a flavorful curry, you won't taste it. So it's a really nice way. I do that a lot with dressings as well. So if I'm making a
Mm.
dressing, I'll blend carrot into it.
Okay.
Um, like I'll blend vegetables into it to thicken it naturally.
Well, since we're talking about dressings, why don't you tell us how can we make a flavorful dressing? Because I get asked all the time, what salad dressings do you buy? What marinades do you buy? I don't buy them. I
Yeah.
usually just, throw an oil, throw like an acid and salt and whatever other seasoning, whether it be herbs or spices, into it to give me the flavor. But there's always a fat, there's always an acid, and then depending on the flavor profile, I'll add whatever I need. What do
Yeah.
you do?
Yeah. Well, I'm the same way. So I make my own. I actually have never purchased a salad dressing in my life.
Like you've never ever?
I never ever have.
Oh, good for you. I
Well, and
can't claim
there's
that.
a little bit of a story. It's because as a kid, I didn't eat salads. So that, first 20 years, that is just because I was, a picky eater and I didn't eat salads. And then the other last 20 odd years, it's because I make my own. And I love salads now. But so making your own salads is absolutely the way to go, because you avoid all the bad oils they use, you avoid all the additives, you avoid the sugar.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not just in grocery stores, this is at restaurants as well. A lot of people always think, oh, the restaurant must be making their own. No, so restaurants get all their food. There's basically like 4 companies, but even those companies get it from the same sources. The one on the West Coast, and I think there's different names across the country, but this one is also on the East Coast. It's called Restaurant Depot. And that's where most restaurants get their food. And I used to go there, I used to own a meal delivery service in Los Angeles. I started that and owned that for 8 years. And I used to go to Restaurant Depot to get containers for the meal delivery stuff. And so I would walk those aisles and I would see what they were selling. And I would see all the restaurants in LA. They all had carts that were going to be delivered to them, and they were just filled with stuff. And it's all the same. It's like craft dressings.
Oh,
I mean, it's all the same sauces, and these are things that they're selling, and you think they are not from a can or a jar, and they are not. They are from a can or jar, and they have the most horrible ingredients out there. So the best thing, the one, I always love to talk to people about what are some 4 health changes you can make immediately, and this is one of them. Make your own dressings and sauces.
love
Right
it.
away, you will feel the difference. Right away, you'll feel the difference in your wallet because it's cheaper,
Mm-hmm.
and B, you'll feel the difference in your health. So here's the trick for dressings: 3 to 1. Okay, that's what I want you to think about when you're doing dressings. 3 parts oil to 1 part acid.
Mm.
Okay, across the board. So you choose the oil. It could be extra virgin olive oil. It could be unrefined, sesame oil. It could be avocado oil. Whatever oil you're choosing. Just don't choose canola.
Nope.
Right?
Oh, my listeners know no canola, no
No corn.
soybean,
Yeah, no
no
soy.
corn, no vegetable oil, no, none of
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So you choose the oil or the fat. So that's 3 parts. So and I always show people it doesn't have to be too complicated. Like you could use the cap
Yeah.
of the oil. It's just 3 parts. So as long as you're using the exact same size of measurement, that's 3 to 1. So let's just say it's tablespoons. So 3 tablespoons of that oil, and then 1 tablespoon of an acid. And what is an acid? That could be lemon juice, that could be lime juice, that could be orange juice, that could be a vinegar, a balsamic vinegar, a champagne vinegar, apple cider vinegar. And basically you do those 3 to 1, and then from there you're just adding the seasonings that flesh out what you want. So if you're wanting herbs, you're adding different herbs, maybe Italian herbs if you're wanting that. You're adding salt and pepper, of course. Actually, this kind of segues to the product Pluck, which is a little, since we haven't talked about it yet, a lot of you may not know, but so Pluck is an organ-based all-purpose seasoning. And I actually add that to my salads a lot too. And we can go into what that is a little later.
Oh,
But
we're going to have to,
okay, we
because
have
I'm
to go into
super
it right now.
excited. Super
Yeah,
excited.
so
Well, we can go into that later.
but
You can finish
I
your thought.
love flavor. I love flavor. So I'm always like, don't just think you only have to do salt, pepper. You could add cumin. You could add smoked paprika. You could add one that I love using is sumac. So sumac, S-U-M-A-C. Sumac is a Mediterranean spice. It is a real spice. It's not like lemon pepper where it has sugar and all this stuff. You know, it's a made up mixture of spices. Sumac is its own spice, and it has a natural lemony flavor to it. So let's say you're someone who had your MRT come up and says you can't do lemons. You can do sumac.
Nice.
So sumac is a wonderful addition, and it adds this kind of the lemony, but it's also a deeper tone as well, almost like sort of like a paprika, but not. It's hard to explain, but you just got to taste it. It's wonderful. And particularly lemon and sumac go so well together. So, but I think it all starts with that 3-to-1.
I'm going to have to pick up some sumac. That's like, I have a huge spice like variety. I don't have that one. So
yeah, you'll
I'm going to have
love
to
it.
pick that and pluck up and go from there.
Because I'm telling you, like pluck, oh my gosh, the flavor it's incredible. And well, do you mind if I just share?
Yeah, go for it.
Right into it. Okay, so the pluck, as I mentioned, it's organ meat based. Okay, so that we're basically what we did with pluck is I was trying to solve a couple problems when we were talking about this before we started, actually. So those of us out there that know we need to be eating organ meat because it is the most nutrient dense food on the planet. So if you're not eating it, you're missing out on an enormous amount of nutrients. I mean, vitamins A, B, C, D, E, and K, you know, I mean, the nutrients that you can get from it, like essential minerals like iron, calcium, copper, magnesium, phosphorus, potassium, and zinc. And it's all absorbable nutrients. It's like heme iron, which is way more absorbable than the zinc you might be getting from your pill.
It's bioavailable, ladies. Like this is what your body absorbs. It wants it. But the problem is organs are not appealing to 99% of the public, myself included.
Absolutely. And it's because they are so nutrient dense that they actually taste metallic, right?
They do.
They have this a texture, which we were talking about earlier. So they have this texture, sometimes rubbery, particularly if it's like a kidney. And there's parts to some of the organs that you don't like the texture, and then that flavor, and it just can be really strong. And so what I did, it was I recognized, okay, how do we get the nutrient density but remove the ew factor, right? Because every time you mention organ meats, people go, they get that ew face, right?
Oh, yep. So the face that I did when we went, organs.
So how do we do that? And that's where I thought about what it's key is when I'm making, let's say, a pate, and I'm trying to hide the flavors in the pate. I'm always, just like I was talking about thickening my dressings and my soups with vegetables. Well, I'm always thinking about how do I remove the flavor with spices and herbs and different vegetables, right? So that's where I got the idea. Whereas I thought to myself, well, if I use freeze-dried powdered organs, first of all, you're not having to deal with cooking it. You're not having to deal with the texture. And then I pair it with spices and herbs that complement the flavors and basically make them not as heightened and to the point where you don't even realize you're eating organ meat, then we solve that problem. And so that's how pluck was created. So pluck is 5 organs. It's liver, kidney, heart, spleen, and pancreas. And it's paired with delicious spices, and together you get A, the nutrients of those organs, B, you get a flavor that's unparalleled. And this is why, and this is ultimately why I brought this up, is the flavor of pluck is umami. And so umami, for those that don't know, umami is the 5th unique flavor. So we have, salty, sweet, sour, bitter. Okay. Now those flavor profiles, whenever you eat something salty, it hits that profile, right? And usually if you get too much salty, you then want sweet. Right. And same with sour and bitter. If you get something bitter, you want sweet. You don't, they don't cross over though. Like, it's not like you can get something, like if you eat something that's like it's only going to be sour, but you can only hit one or multiples at a time. But there's that fifth, which is umami. And umami is something you find in like soy sauce. It's definitely an Asian flavor profile, but it also is used. It also shows up in MSG. So MSG is something that's added to products, packaged food products, because they know that if they hit that umami flavor, it's a unique flavor point and it's going to enhance the flavor in your body, but it's also going to be so unique that it's going to create almost like an addictive quality.
Mm-hmm. There's no MSG in pluck, right?
No. Well, so organ meat is naturally umami. So organ meat has a natural umami taste, and thus you do not need MSG. Like that's the whole point I'm trying to make is like it pluck naturally has an umami flavor, and so we tap that flavor profile and basically so that it makes everything taste better. Like I truly have not found one thing that it doesn't make taste better. And I am now sprinkling it on toast. Even when I have my gluten-free toast, I'm sprinkling it on salads. I sprinkle it on vegetables. I sprinkle it on every kind of meat. So even though we source it from bovine, which is cow, it's cow organs, and we're sourcing it from, I mentioned this to you, but there's really only two truly healthy sources of bovine organs, and that's New Zealand provides them, or Argentina. And a lot of people in the field will actually state that that New Zealand's is better even than Argentina's, and there's a lot of thought behind that. I think New Zealand is an island, so they can contain things a lot better than the US or other larger countries, but New Zealand still follows, not all their farms, but most of their farms follow very specific guidelines of 100% grass-fed, grass finished meat. Now, all animals, this is a mistake a lot of people or misunderstanding people have, is all animals are grass-fed. They all start out grass-fed, but as you know, they do not end grass-fed. And they're sometimes fed, particularly if they're in CAFOs or conventional meats, they're fed things that they really shouldn't be fed. Like a lot of people may not know this, they're sometimes fed candy, like they're fed like the dredges of leftovers of other industry sometimes. So it all depends. It's really horrible how conventional.
Those poor animals.
Oh, it's horrible. And poor humans.
Yeah.
Think about the majority of humans are eating conventional meat.
Yep. Well,
so
I tell people all the time, you are what you eat and what you eat ate. So
yes.
If it's not eating healthy, natural things that it was meant to eat, you're going to be having all of the health problems that animal was experiencing. And so
absolutely,
quality is so important. So can you, I understand that the source for the organ meat is from New Zealand. And I asked you, well, what about maybe doing it more locally? Is that possible? Because I know everyone's always about like, well, how can we do this local? How can we?
Oh, yeah. Well,
what is the problem with that? Like, what is the holdup?
Yes, I would love to do it locally. I mean, it would be so much more cost effective because the importing of the organs and just the shipping of it is so expensive, and it adds so much cost. And I would love to support the small farms, and I am looking into that. But one of the main issues I've run into is, well, actually, there's a few. So one of them is the slaughterhouses. So sometimes when a small farm is high, using a slaughterhouse, depending on how that slaughterhouse has certified that farm, sometimes the organs are not classified as edible. Even though their animals are healthy, there's nothing wrong, but it's all the relationship that they have with that slaughterhouse and the certifications that slaughterhouse has. So sometimes the offal from that farm can't even be sold or used, which is such a shame. And so it gets sold to dog food makers.
It's crazy because I bought a half cow from a local grass-fed farmer, organic. And I asked, can I have like the trachea for my dog? Can I have certain things for my dog? And she's like, I'd love to, but I can't. And the reason I can't is because of the slaughter. They don't allow us. And I was like, what? What do you mean?
Yeah, so, a lot of people don't know that. It's sometimes it's all about what the slaughterhouse is allowed to do or not. It's the certifications, it's the oversight. And then the other issue that a lot of people aren't aware of is, so freeze drying, I get freeze dried powdered organs. Okay. Now freeze drying, for those that don't know, is a way of preserving the highest amount of nutrients, because it's key. Like if I heat up anything, it gets heated, it lowers the nutrient value, right? Heat kills vitamins. It kills many of the nutrients that we want to get from something. And so when you freeze dry, you are maintaining as many of those as possible, even sometimes more so than even dehydration, because dehydration is still heat. It's just a low temperature heat. And so across the board, freeze drying is the preferred way of getting freeze dried powdered organs, or powdered organs, because of the nutrient value. But there are only so many freeze drying facilities in the US. And like there's one here, and I live in Portland, Oregon, and there's one in Oregon, the state of Oregon, and it's one of the largest in the country, and it is inundated. They have no space. So I couldn't even acquire the organs and get it sent there, because they don't even have the space to take it, because they're inundated. Like their focus is on vegetables and fruit, and then survival or camping foods. And so there's just not enough room. So I'm definitely in talks with some organizations to see if we can create our own freeze drying facility, but that is the goal. I would love to do it, but it's just not available.
It'll just take some time.
Yeah.
But so back to like the flavor profile, because I know I already asked you this, but I'm going to get asked, does it taste like organs? Like if I buy the seasoning, am I going to taste organs? Like I know you said that it has an umami. Did I say that right?
Umami, yeah, umami
flavor. But can you still get that organ taste, or does it smell like organ meat? Like, because people have like PTSD with their mom making them eat liver growing up as a kid, or, kidney or whatever it may be. So does it have that flavor and the smell that organs typically have?
Well, I think I can answer this by sharing one of the testimonials. It's actually on our website. The website is eatpluck.com. And one of the testimonials on the website is from a nutritionist who, like you, knows they're supposed to eat organ meat, but struggles with it because she gags when she gets the flavor in her mouth. So she gags. She cannot eat it. She's tried. She can't eat it. So she tried Pluck. She can eat it. She had no issues. She was blown away. She thought she thought it was this. She thought it was this miracle product, because she said, "Oh my gosh, I can now eat organ meat without feeling and tasting organs." And that it's the true. It has. You definitely can tell it's got something in it, but it's not. Your brain doesn't connect it to organs. It's that umami flavor is what comes through. And for those that even go to Trader Joe's, for example, so you can get umami from mushrooms. You know what I mean? Umami is a flavor that most of us are getting. And as I mentioned, MSG is in so many packaged products. You're getting that umami flavor in items you probably aren't aware that you're getting it. Now, when it's MSG, you're getting it from poor sources. But when you can get that umami from a clean, natural source, it really does. It's a game changer. It's a game changer. And I've heard things like, first of all, kids love Pluck. Like, no joke. It's insane. I have not met a kid yet who does not like this product.
Wow. That is an impressive statement, because kids can be very difficult.
Yeah. Right. My kids love it, and they freak out about it. Like, they now put it on everything. I've been told that from other people as well. This one family I know, she has 2 boys and a daughter, and she said, yeah, my kids call it the good spice. They put it on everything. They put it on popcorn, eggs. They put it on, like, if they're having vegetables or potatoes or something, they'll put it on that. I mean, they put it on everything. And that's, I was starting to say that, even though it's coming from cows, what's amazing to me, and I think this even further answers your question, is it doesn't taste like cow organs. It's more the umami flavor that comes through. And there's also some smoked paprika in it. So it has a smoky flavor to it. But you can put it on fish. You could put it on chicken, lamb. It doesn't matter what animal you put it on, even though it's cow organs. So it's kind of amazing. It's incredibly versatile. And I didn't know that was going to be the case. So I'm saying that with genuine kind of awe, because I was like, I had the idea, I put this together, but I didn't know what it was going to work with.
Mm-hmm.
I've just learned over the last year as I've been developing the product and trying on different things and having pre-COVID, having dinner parties and sharing it with people, like I learned that it really does work with everything. So I'm ecstatic to share that with everyone, that you can get your organ nutrients without feeling and tasting organs,
Mm-hmm.
and that it makes other things taste better.
So is this a way that you can maybe get other family members on board with eating differently or getting some additional minerals and vitamins into their diet without having that uphill battle that we know can happen?
Absolutely. I mean, oh geez, like families and diets and everything. I know it can be crazy, particularly, let's be honest. I mean, women in the household, you are the rocks, you are the motivators of health. I mean, I have been in this industry long enough. I have seen it. It's always women driving health, always. And if you are also the person in your household who's doing the cooking, which is typically women, um, then you understand, if everyone, let's just say if you're the one driving your health and you have to eat one way, but then your kids are eating another way, and then your partner, your husband is like a non-believer, which is also usually the case. Usually the husbands thwart the health regime. They're the ones that are giving the kids the treats that they're not supposed to be eating, things like that. Then you're either making 2 or 3 meals every time you cook. And I want you to know that that is insane. And I want you to stop doing that right now. It is not acceptable that just because you're the one that cares about your family's health, that you should be shamed for it or made to work even harder than you already do. So my first thing that I always recommend is the whole household has got to be on the same page. Whole household, absolutely. So my wife has autoimmune,
Mm-hmm.
Hashimoto's. It's known that with Hashimoto's, you should not be eating gluten.
Mm-hmm.
And you could argue that you shouldn't be eating gluten anyway, but particularly for those with autoimmune, you should not be eating gluten. So when she learned of her diagnosis, the whole family went off gluten, because it's not fair if we're eating gluten and she's not. It makes it harder for the process. So first thing is the whole family gets on board, and if your husband's not on board, well, guess what? Then you should hold out on him sexually. You
Oh,
should. I think a lot of women forget how much power they have, and men are we majority of men actually are looking for a woman to tell us what to do. We may fight it, but we are looking to be told what to do. And it's probably the mother complex, right? Because we grew up like that. Who knows? But a lot of men are looking to be told what to do, and women hold way more power than they realize. And if your husband is not listening, is not reacting, then hold out on the most primal thing you have, which is your sexuality. Hold out on it. You basically insist that your husband get on board, because what is it that's at risk for him to eat the way that you're suggesting? What is at risk? His pride, probably. His ego, maybe. But it's not his health. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, yes,
mm-hmm.
it's at risk if he doesn't eat that way. But I'm just saying, like, if he changes his eating for even 3 months or follows whatever you say, what's truly at risk?
How do you get them, though, when they're like, he just hates vegetables, or he just hates whatever, he doesn't believe that gluten is a problem, whatever it may be, like replace gluten with dairy or soy or citrus or whatever it may be, he just doesn't believe that that's a problem. How do you recommend then?
I say you take it one step at a time. So right away, I would say 2 weeks, 2-week test, because as we know, it takes at least 2 weeks for your body to fully kind of clean out, right? And that's true even with sugar. If you have a sweet tooth, if you at least stop for minimum 2 weeks, then your palate will change if you're not eating sugar or added sugar products. Your body will clear out, and you will really know. And then after that 2 weeks, you let that person taste whatever it is you pulled out, and only that one thing, and then go right back to eating clean and just see how their body responds. And if you start having flatulence, bloating, right? Like you can't deny those things. Like you should not, like your man should not be thinking that a normal dinner should end with him unbuttoning his, his pants or his belt. Like that's how I remember growing up. That's how it was almost like accepted. That I remember my dad was like the guy who farted, right? Like that was the guy who always, and I remember it was like constant. It was a lot. And I remember that's how I was, and that's how my brother was. And it was only until I got out of my household and I started eating differently that I realized, oh, wait, that's actually a sign that something's wrong in the body. That's not normal. And I think there's a lot of things out there that we as sometimes men or just as a household, we're all experiencing, so we think is normal, but we don't connect it to it's what we're eating that's causing this. And when I eat clean, I have I have hardly any flatulence. I have zero skin issues, itching, nothing like that, redness. I have zero like brain fog, and things like that. These chronic illnesses that we don't realize are actually illnesses from the food we're eating. And so right away, I'd say give it 2 weeks. I would say, because a lot of people are sometimes overwhelmed by change. So definitely taking one step at a time. And I would not do everything at once. If let's say if it's dairy, gluten, and soy, let's just say, I would pick one. Don't do all three. Now I say that with also the other caveat, which is you need to know who you are. Like I'm an all or nothing guy. Like, so for me, it's actually easier if I don't do any of it. Like I would rather have nothing of those, let's say that the top 3 allergen foods, soy, wheat, and dairy. I would rather have none of it than have a little bit of it, because a little bit of it then makes me crave more of it.
Yep. I'm the same way. I do. If I just don't do any, easier.
Yeah. You got to know yourself, and it starts there. And so if you are an all or nothing person, then I would absolutely say, yeah, cut out these things, cut out everything and anything that you need to cut out that you've been shared. Now, I also am a big fan of not self-assessing. Like I really do believe people should go to practitioners like yourself. They should go to people that are experts in the field, because I know people who've cut out eggs when they were 12 and they haven't had an egg since. And it's only because they think an egg is causing them harm.
Right.
But they don't know, and they're depriving themselves of something that they probably could have just gone off of for 3 months. You know what I mean? You just don't know. So don't self-assess, like go to an expert, get everyone in the household on board. And the beauty about Pluck is, as I mentioned, I haven't found a kid that doesn't like it, but you don't have to tell your kid what's in it.
That's what my family did. They never told me what it was. It was, oh, that's just a brown potato. It was a turnip. Or, oh, that's just special lettuce. It was spinach, like.
I mean, we think we live in this day and age where we think, of transparency, which I'm all for in a company and with my friends. But when you're the parent of a household to your kid doesn't need to know everything. They don't need to know if you're struggling financially or stuff like that or whatever. You can hide certain things because you're trying to preserve their childhood. And if you know something's good for them to eat, you don't need to tell them what it is. Just feed it to them and let their body tell them that it's good or bad. And I find, you mentioned the whole thing, like what if someone says, I don't eat vegetables, let's just say. Well, usually that's connected to what we started this whole conversation off with, is how, particularly if it's an adult, how were the vegetables prepared in their house? If they were steamed or boiled until they were dead in like that pale
disintegrated.
Yeah. Then of course you're not going to like it, because that's disgusting, right? So my whole advice would be like, well, change it up. Like change how you're preparing the food. And then this is always like a safe bet, is cheese makes everything taste better. Right? So if you're a family that can eat dairy and someone is saying they don't like vegetables, then put on top of the vegetables the thing that they do like. So if it's dairy, then put cheese. If it's salsa, put salsa. Like just give the kid, like actually just the other day, I made some broccoli. And I'm all about, at the end of the week, I like to clean out the kitchen. So I'm all about, like, my goal every week is to have an empty kitchen by the end of the week, or sorry, an empty refrigerator. And so we had some Caesar dressing I had made, and there was only a little bit left. So I'm like, oh, well, this might taste good with the broccoli. It didn't. I put it on the broccoli and it was horrible. It just didn't go right. Caesar is better when it's cold and it's on something crispy. It just didn't go well with steamed vegetables. And so, but I was like, well, I tried, I did it, and this is what it is. So we all have to suck it up. So I served it, and no one, my wife and I ate it, even though we both were aware that it didn't taste great. But the kids were like, I don't want this. And we're very much a household where when something is served, that is all that's for dinner. We don't make multiple meals. So if they don't eat it, that's fine. They can have it for breakfast the next day, or they just don't get more food. Right. So we're very much like that. And some people might think that's hardcore, but no kid is going to starve in one meal, but it teaches them to honor the process of food, that we're not meant to be, that all their needs are not going to be catered to, that they have to sometimes just, eat what's there,
I love that. And the other thing that I tell parents to do all the time is give them a little bit. Don't give them a ton, give them a little bit to try it, so that at least they'll finish what's on their plate. And after they try everything, they then have the option to have more of what it is that they want to have more of.
Exactly. No, 100%. That's how we are. So basically the kids didn't like it. And so we had this kind of showdown, and it was like, well, this is your serving. This is what you got to eat, or not eat. And what we ended up doing is, this is something I give my wife full credit for this, is they ended up, my wife and my older daughter, who was struggling, had a conversation, said, okay, well, let's problem solve. Like, so you don't want to eat this. We get it. It doesn't taste good. We totally admit, Daddy admitted that he tried something and it failed. But how can we make it so it's edible? And she's like, well, and my daughter came up, there was this salsa in the refrigerator that she really likes. She said, well, what if we try putting the salsa on it? And my wife was like, great. She's like, what about if we grate some cheese? And including the child in the process is gold. Because when they have the power in the situation and they're choosing, they will do it. And that's why I'm always advocating that kind of stuff. And also the child helping to make the meal. Because if they help make it, they understand the components and they will be more apt to try it.
Oh, 100% with helping.
But she did that. She put the salsa and a little bit of cheese on, and she ate the whole thing. And she was like, actually, it tasted good. And I'm like, yeah, that's how we do it. And so 100%, like if try something, if it doesn't work, try something else. But don't accept the status quo. The status quo, the generic term of I don't like vegetables doesn't apply, because we don't live in a bubble. Those vegetables don't have to be plain. They don't have to be on their own. They can be made differently than what you think they can be made. So just think outside the box. Like add something to it. Maybe instead of having the meal all separated, you make it into a quiche, or into a souffle or something like that, where it's all one thing. And then your family isn't thinking I'm eating a bunch of vegetables. They're just eating, something that's quiche-like, whatever it is that works for you.
I call it my one pot meal. And that's what I do at the end of the week when I'm like, okay, I have kale and I have zucchini and I have some tomatoes that are going. So we're just going to throw it all in one pot. I'll add whatever protein and whatever sauce I'm going to add. And it's a one pot meal. It's easy cleanup. But then, just like you said, you're not looking at everything. So,
I love that. And also you're making it easy on yourself, which I'm all for. Like the kitchen shouldn't be a stressful place. We eat enough in the day that it should not be a stressful process. And if it is, I would suggest that, you reach out to someone like me that is an expert in that field who can support you in making it not so stressful. But most importantly is you do things, you add things to the recipe of cooking. You add stuff that de-stress it. Maybe you play music. Maybe you do things like one pot things, you simplify the process. You don't look at recipes, just follow your instinct, follow what's in your refrigerator.
Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. So where can they get that organ seasoning? Because guys, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get some. The first time I tried, I'm going to do a video of it. I'll probably do a live on Facebook so you can see my true reaction, because those of you that watch my videos know that I don't hide facial expressions very well. It is either a blessing or a curse or both all at once. But you'll be able to see, because I truly do. I know how important organ meat is. I preach it all the time. I can't get it down. So just like that other nutritionist, I almost gag. There's been a few times based on how it was prepared, I was able to get it down, which was great because it was prepared. I don't even know how it was prepared. But you guys will see my reaction. And I actually am super excited to be able to get organ meat into my diet at an easier rate than trying to find a good quality supplement, because right now the organ supplements, the sourcing is not there, and I'm struggling to find that. So thank you for providing this. So where can they find it?
Yeah. So Pluck is at our website, eatpluck.com. And for your listeners, those that want to give it a try, if you use the code PLUCK10, so PLUCK10, you'll save 10% on your first order. And I can't recommend it enough. So one of the reasons I came up with this idea, I shared kind of my desire to get the nutrition of real food, nutrient dense organ meats into the diet. But one of the things that also inspired this was our youngest daughter, when she was around 2, got Shiga toxin, which is a life-threatening illness for elderly people and for kids. And we don't know how she got it. We were on a trip in Canada and both kids got it, but our oldest got through it really quickly. But our youngest was already just kind of smaller and already thin. And Shiga toxin, basically nothing can be held down. So you're throwing everything up, or you have diarrhea, and so nothing was being held in. The oldest, it lasted for about 3 days, and the youngest was about 5 or 6 days in, and I had to go away for a business trip at the time. It was just like a one-day trip. She's now 4, so this is over 2 years ago, and I had to go away, and for whatever reason, I left thinking she was on the upswing. I think we thought she was starting to get better, and when I came back, though, I was only gone a couple of days, but when I came back, she was skin and bones. I could literally see her bones, and she was not. She was still having issues, and it scared me so much as a parent who's wanting to make sure that their child is getting nutrients. I think about parents that have picky eaters, that they just can't get the food into their kid. That's where Pluck came from. It's like, how can I get these nutrients into my kid without dealing with picky eating or any kind of emotional, I won't do it, or any fight. I didn't want any fight, right? You just want to get the nutrients in the kid, and case closed. And that's where Pluck came from. And this is a way to get nutrients into you and your family without anyone knowing, but yet everyone enjoying the flavor, because it's just, it really is that good. And I, fortunately she got through it, and she's thriving and she's fine, but maximizing nutrient density is key. So functional foods, I'm all about that. But even more important, and this kind of ties into our conversation about New Year's resolutions, is I think one of the things one of the reasons why people fail with their health is because they are trying to adopt a new habit that is not actually in practice yet. So we're living our life, we have our day-to-day life, and then they're trying to also run, an hour each day or something. They're adopting a whole new habit into a structure that doesn't already contain that habit. And that is very hard to do. You have to be very diligent to do that. And you have to work through even the days where you don't want to do it, right? Mm-hmm. So the beauty of Pluck is it requires new habit. You already season your food. So all I'm saying is, don't pick up the normalcy. Don't pick up that Lowry's, sugar laden, poor made, all purpose. Pick up Pluck. Don't pick up salt and pepper. Pick up Pluck. So there's no new habit. You're just tweaking what you're using instead of the habit. And boom, you're getting these nutrients. And so to me, that's a win. Anything that doesn't require a new habit change is a win, because that is easy. It not only makes health like easy, it makes it truly achievable.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to try it, and I will let you know what I think.
I can't
I'm
wait.
really glad that you didn't turn it into a gummy, because that's the only other way that I know you can get stuff into kids without like too much fighting.
That's
But
true.
an organ gummy would be, whew.
I do know someone that you put pluck on a pomegranate and they said it was really good. So it's funny because that's the one thing I haven't really explored is pluck with sweet things. It's just not where my brain goes, but other people are trying it and they're saying that it goes well. So teach their own.
There you go. I'm not much of a sweet person. I wonder though, if you made it like use that as like the salty for like chocolate chip cookies or brownie or something.
I don't know. If you do it, let me know. I mean, I'm all for people experimenting, because we all have, we're all unique in our flavor profile and our bio individuality. So I'm all for you trying things with your instincts. I'm all about those instincts. I personally think that our instincts are godly. And so the more we can listen to them, mm-hmm. and get out of our heads and get out of what we think is how we're supposed to be doing it, but just listening, conscious eating, listening to the feedback we get from our body, we'll be way better off.
Awesome. Well, I like to end podcasts by just asking a couple questions. Don't think too hard about them. It's literally just what pops into your brain. So what is your favorite beverage?
Water. And it's so true. So a little story is I had a kidney stone when I was right out of college. And I got a kidney stone. A kidney stone is probably the closest a man can get to having a child. It's extremely painful. I got that kidney stone because I was only eating pizza and I was only drinking root beer. Oh. And I was not drinking enough water. So that pain resulted in me realizing, I need to be drinking water. That was my epiphany towards me starting this health journey, actually. So I'm glad I experienced it. But since then
I'm with you.
Yeah, I only drink water now. I sometimes I have some sparkling water with a little lemon or lime, but I am in kombucha. I sometimes drink a little kombucha, but water is my beverage of choice.
Yep, my sparkling water.
Yeah, I've heard of that brand.
Yeah, Topo Chico. It's a really nice. It's very minerally, which I love. So.
Oh yeah, I like that too.
Yeah. What is your favorite meal? And then what is your favorite meal to put pluck on?
Oh, okay. So my favorite to put pluck on is toast, actually, right now. I don't eat toast all the time, but I just love it. I love putting butter and then pluck right on the toast. I just think it's so good. And I even tried it on pizza and it made pizza taste better. And now I can't have pizza without it. But my favorite meal is actually the thing that we've talked about, which is salad. I love salads now. And it's glorious since I didn't eat them from the first 20 years of my life, but it's my favorite go-to food. I usually will take leftovers of dinner and I will saladize them for lunch almost every day.
I'm so glad that more people are saying salads, because that has been my favorite meal since I was a teenager, and people would look at me like I had 3 heads. But now more and more people are starting to love salads. What is your favorite book?
I'm reading this one right now okay. I was going to say what I'm reading now versus what's a favorite. So what I'm reading right now is one called, what is it called? Feeding Us Lies. It's by the Food Babe, Vari, I forget her last name, but or maybe that is her last name, but I'm really enjoying it. She's a lovely writer, and it's just uncovering a lot of like the food industry's indiscretions. Mm-hmm. But one of my all-time favorite books, that it's actually from when I was in high school, and I still to this day, one of my favorite books is Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison. I love that book.
What's your favorite song that gets you like jamming?
Well, lately, because I just saw One Night in Miami, which is on Amazon Prime. I don't know if you're familiar with that. But Sam Cooke's song. I have been listening. I'm really I'm really taken by this song. And if you see the movie, oh, I wish I could remember the name of it right now. It's about change. It's like change is going to come. That's basically what it's called. And it's such a powerful song, but that movie made it so powerful, even more powerful. And I just can't get enough of that song right now.
What's the name of the movie again?
One Night in Miami. It's phenomenal. It's about Malcolm X, Cassius Clay before he was Muhammad Ali, Sam Cooke, and what's his name? The football player at the time who later became an actor. I forget his name right now. But it's about this true life meeting that they had in Miami after Cassius Clay beat Sonny Liston, and it's really well done.
Very cool. And then last question: what is on your night-side table?
My kid rocks. Like my kids, I don't keep much on my table, and so my kids put stuff, and so it's all these the mineral rocks that.
Oh yeah, like the geodes.
Yeah, geodes. It's all the. I don't know why my daughter put those there, but she did, and there's crystals too. So I'm like, all right, like I don't have I don't really care too much. So I figure if someone is motivated to do it, then maybe there's a reason. I'll just trust that.
There you go. That's awesome.
Providing good energy to me. I don't know. I'll take it.
Super cool. Well, thank you so much for being with me today, James. It was such a fun conversation, and I'd love to have you back on at some point where we can maybe troubleshoot like through different cooking things, doing more of the how versus the why, because
that'll be fun.
Like I said, I'm all about the why.
Yes, and I am the technician. I am the how.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you being with me. And ladies, let me know what you think of pluck. You got to try it. Just try it. I'm going to try it, and we'll go from there.
I promise you will not be disappointed. I'm all for what works. I'm not a charlatan. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to just sell you something just because I think I love that this is not only good for you, but tastes good. To me, it's a win-win. So
that is a win-win.
Wait to hear how you like it and how any of your listeners like it. Cause I love it, but I'm so open to anyone telling me their feedback.
Perfect. All right, James, thanks so much.
Thank you. Take care.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Women in Wellness as much as I did. If you did, please leave a review and a rating so that others can also benefit from the information being shared. Make sure to subscribe as new content is released on Women in Wellness Wednesdays. And if you want to connect with us, go online to womeninwellness.com. That's women, the letter N, wellness.com. I look forward to seeing you next time.